So one of the five pillars of ikigai is being in the here and now, and it's related to mindfulness, and apparently, and it's obvious, isn't it? I mean, being in the here and now is related to mindfulness, and it's a really important trick for the brain to play because it involves the recruitment of the brain circuits to your focusing experience at that time. In at any given moment, the brain is bombarded with lots of information, and the brain simply cannot handle all of them. There's this idea called sensory overflow, in which you are seeing and hearing all these things, but your brain can uh, process only a subset of it explicitly in terms of memory and linguistic processing. For example, if you are looking at a scene, you see all these things and you are aware of it. That's called visual awareness. But your brain can process only a tiny subset of it, linguistically and in terms of memory. So that after some in intervals, you are asked what items were in the scene, you are often not able to tell them explicitly one by one. There are even experiments which suggest that if if there's a scene and you have seen it, and if somebody does a trick and changes some small items in the scene, you are not aware of the changes. That's called change blindness. And so, there's this idea that at any given moment of your phenomenal experience, you are aware of much more than is processed linguistically or mnemonically. So that is a very important concept, which is called sensory overflow. Now, being in the here now, it's like trying to uh, come to face with the sensory overflow. Of course, you cannot give explicit labels to all of them, and of course you cannot memorize everything that you are experiencing. But this is still an unexplored field of neuroscience. But your brain somehow can come face to face with the sheer richness, abundance of information that is in your sensory experience, so that although you cannot memorize and you cannot give verbal expression to the whole richness, whole spectrum, if you like, of your experience, your brain somehow can, focus on the whole picture. And because of that, if you do that, presumably you would be more creative and you would be more integrated. And that can tell later if you look at what you are producing, how you are communicating with people, and most importantly, what kind of person you are. These very important elements of life are actually affected whether you are focusing on the whole picture at one moment or not. So in daily lives, because we are bombarded with a lot of technology and screen time, and where when we're looking at the screen time, we are not actually aware of the whole picture of our experience. We're just focusing on a tiny subset of our whole experience, and that is necessary and also efficient when you are doing some practical businesses, but that cannot really cultivate your creative power, because your creative power comes from your within. Your creative power requires your whole self. So unless you devote your entire existence to something, you cannot be, really creative. And that is when this idea of being in the here and now comes into the picture. Because mindfulness is a really important aspect of Zen Buddhism, and when the young Buddhist monks meditate in you know the Buddhist temples, and mind you, if you go to any Zen temple, they make a great effort to make the gardens and buildings and so on very beautiful, because that's all you are going to get when you are meditating. Uh, if when you are meditating, you are supposed to be aware of your environment, the whole picture. So it makes sense to make that environment beautiful, tranquil, poignant. Because otherwise, your meditation would be filled with garbages and noises and so on. So it makes sense to make the environment beautiful, because that's what you are going to get the whole time while you're meditating. So in the Buddhist temple, hopefully there will be a really nice garden, and you will be aware of the sensory overflow, the whole sheer richness and robust information, and and you will try to integrate that with you, within you, and in addition to that, not you are not only aware of the external environment, but you are also aware of your internal self. Your breathing, it is a very important technique in Zen Buddhism to attend to your breathing, your heartbeat, maybe your inner feelings, all this metacognition, if you like. I mean, metacognition is the brain's trick to assess its internal state. The prefrontal cortex is very important in doing that. So if you apply all these techniques to integrate you and come together with yourself and the external environment, then from time to time something magical happens, and nobody understands what the exact processes are in terms of neural activities. But the brain is a small world network. I mean, from any given neuron in the brain, it is estimated that you can reach other neurons via just a few synapses. That's the way a small world network is organized. So it's a combination of regular and random or short range or long range connections. And because of the mixture of random and regular or short range and long range connections, the brain is a small world network. And there's always this possibility of bringing everything together into one coherent whole. And that is actually what we call consciousness, by the way. So consciousness is the expression of brain's ability to connect the whole system via these small networks. And but in our daily life, when we're looking at computer screens and smartphones, these screen times do not tap into the vast possibility that this small network in the brain has in itself. So only when we apply this principle of being in the here and now, when we try to attend to, if we can, the sensory overflow that is coming towards us, and only when we try to integrate within ourselves, all these detailed phenomenological aspects of one's experience, only then you can tap into the great reservoir of creativity and personal potential that is within your brain. So this is really interesting from competition point of view. And the question is, can artificial intelligence do something like that? And this is an interesting and potentially important question, because artificial intelligence systems, as far as we are concerned, it's just a serial computer. It does one operation at one time. And of course, people are having discussions about the parallel computing and so on. But the brain is an integrated parallel system. So nobody actually understands computationally what does it mean. I mean, integration and parallelism. These, on the surface, contradicting terms. How can they be made into one coherent system? That is actually the $1,000,000 or $1,000,000,000 question about consciousness. But putting that aside, it is very important to practice being in here now from time to time, because otherwise you would lose yourself in this vast sea of irrelevant and trivial technological information, and that is actually the chore that we go through in our daily life that we call modern life.